Welcome to Beyond the Backroads.
In Deer Lodge, Montana, there's a place that doesn't try to hide what it was. You don't stumble across it. You don't miss it. You see it long before you reach it. Stone walls rising out of the landscape, thick, gray, and deliberate. Guard towers still standing where they were placed more than a century ago. Windows that don't reflect light. They seem to absorb it. The old Montana State Prison.
From a distance, it looks like history. Preserved, documented, something you could walk through and learn from. But the closer you get, the less it feels like something that ended.
The structure itself feels intentional in a way that's hard to explain. Not just built to hold people, but built to remind them they were being held. Every wall thick enough to block out sound. Every corner designed to eliminate escape. Every line of sight controlled.
It opened in 1871 when Montana was still a territory. And at that time, it wasn't just a prison. It was an infrastructure. A necessary part of building order in place that didn't have much of it yet.
But what makes this prison different from most is how it was built. Not hired by crews, not by outside contractors, but by the inmates themselves.
The people locked inside built the walls that could keep them there, laid the stone, raised the towers, constructed the cells.
And when you think about that, it changes how you see the place. Because every hallway, every doorway, every surface was touched by the people who lived there, worked there, died there.
Visitors today often describe the same thing when they step inside. It's not immediate, it's not overwhelming, but it's there.
A heaviness, subtle, consistent, like the building is holding on to something.
Not fear, not panic, just awareness.
Like the space hasn't fully let go of what it was, and maybe it was never meant to.
Stop. If there's one person tied to the identity of this prison, it's Warden Frank Connolly. And his legacy isn't simple.
Connolly wasn't just managing the prison, he was shaping it, expanding it, defining what it would become.
During his time as warden, spanning decades, he transformed the facility into something much larger than it started. More building, more infrastructure, more control.
And all of it built using inmate labor.
Prisoners didn't just maintain the prison, they built it. And not just that, they were sent outside the walls too, building roads, working ranches, contributing to projects across Montana.
At the time, it was framed as productivity, giving inmates something to do, teaching discipline, structure.
But there's another side of that, because when you control someone's labor, you control more than just their time. You control their movement, their energy, their daily reality.
Accounts from that time describing long days, hard work, little choice.
And Connolly himself is remembered in two very different ways.
To some, he was efficient, organized, a man who took a struggling system and made it functional.
To others, he was rigid, unyielding, someone who believed control was the only way to maintain order.
And for a while, that approach worked. The prison expanded, operations ran, structure held.
But systems like that often depend on the person enforcing them. And when that person leaves, what's underneath starts to show.
When Connolly stepped away in 1921, he left behind more than buildings. He left behind a system that depended on control to function.
And without that consistent pressure, things didn't collapse immediately, but they started to shift.
After Connolly's era ended, the prison didn't change overnight. There wasn't a single moment where everything fell apart. It was slower than that, more subtle.
At first, it was small things. Overcrowding became more noticeable. Cells designed for one person holding two, then three.
More people meant more tension, more friction, more opportunities for conflict.
And the system that had kept them everything in control wasn't keeping up anymore.
Staffing didn't match the population, oversight weakened, and inside the prison, people started adapting.
Inmates began creating their own structure, their own hierarchy. They were known as con bosses, inmates who held influence over others, who controlled access to resources, who decided who got what, and sometimes who didn't. If you were new to the prison, you learned quickly where you stood, who to avoid, who to listen to, what rules mattered, and which ones didn't.
Because in environments like that, order doesn't disappear, it just changes form.
And when control shifts from the staff to inmates, everything becomes less predictable.
People described the atmosphere as tense, not loud or chaotic, but constantly on edge.
Like something could happen at any moment, even if nothing was happening right now.
And that kind of moment doesn't stay contained forever.
Eventually, it breaks. See that? By the late 1950s, the old Montana State Prison wasn't just overcrowded, it was unstable. And that instability didn't show itself all at once. It built slowly, quietly, in ways that weren't always visible unless you were paying attention.
From the outside, the prison still looked controlled, structured, routine. But inside, people were noticing changes.
Conversations getting shorter, tempers flaring faster, small conflicts turning into something bigger than they should have been.
Guards later described it as a shift in atmosphere, not something they could point to, but something they could feel, like walking into a room where a conversation had just stopped.
Inmates noticed it too. The way certain people moved differently, the way groups started forming more tightly, the way information stopped flowing the way it used to.
And in a place like that, when communication changes, everything changes.
Because uncertainty spreads faster than anything else. Faster than control, faster than order.
And the more uncertainty builds, the more people start preparing, even if they don't fully know what they're preparing for.
Some accounts suggest that certain inmates had already been talking, planning, watching routines, learning patterns.
But not everyone knew. Not everyone was involved, which meant when it happened, a lot of people were going to be caught in something they didn't choose.
And that's what made it unpredictable, because it wasn't just one group acting. It was an entire environment ready to break.
April 16th, 1959. The day didn't start differently. There were no alarms, no warnings, no visible signs that anything was about to change.
Routine movement, routine checks, routine silence, the kind of silence that had existed in that prison for years.
And that's what made it so sudden. Because when something disrupts a system built on routine, it doesn't ease in, it breaks.
Accounts suggest that it started fast. A guard isolated, overpowered, keys taken.
And once keys change hands inside a prison, control changes with them.
Doors that had been locked for years opened one after another.
Some inmates ran. Some stepped out slowly. Some didn't move at all.
Because in that moment, no one knew what this was yet. A fight, an escape, or something bigger.
And when you don't know what's happening, every decision feels like the wrong one.
Stay in your cell, you might get trapped. Step out, you might be part of something you didn't choose.
That uncertainty, that's what filled the prison first, before the noise, before the movement, before the chaos.
Deputy Warden Theodore Raw wasn't part of the build-up. He wasn't inside when it started. He wasn't aware of what had already begun unfolding.
He had been across the street, at a meeting, routine, normal, the kind of moment you don't remember because nothing stands out about it.
Stop. When he came back, there were no immediate signs, no visible indications that control had already shifted.
He walked in, entered his office, and sat down.
And for a moment, everything was still.
That's what makes this moment different. It wasn't loud, it wasn't chaotic, it was quiet.
And then it wasn't.
Roth was shot inside his office, killed before there was time to react, before there was time to understand.
And that moment changed everything, because up until then, this could have been contained, managed, and stopped.
But once that happened, the situation crossed a line.
Now it wasn't just a riot. It was something else entirely. The people who experienced this from the inside didn't all see the same thing, but they felt the same thing.
Uncertainty, confusion, and a lack of control.
One account describes a man standing in his cell, watching the door open, not touching it, not stepping out, just standing there.
He said the hardest part wasn't fear, it was deciding whether to stay put was safer or stepping into something unknown.
He described watching others move past him, some running, some calm, some acting like they knew exactly what was happening.
And realizing he didn't.
Another account describes being directed out into the corridor, not forced, just told where to go, where to stand, what to do.
And following those directions, not because he trusted them, but because not following them felt worse.
That's what environments like that do. They condition you to respond, even when you don't understand why. For nearly 36 hours, the old Montana State Prison wasn't run by staff. It wasn't structured. It wasn't controlled in a way it had been for decades. It was run by inmates.
And that kind of shift doesn't just change authority, it changes the entire atmosphere of a place.
Because prisons rely on predictability, schedules, hierarchy, defined roles. And in those hours, all of that was gone.
Cells that had always been locked were open. Spaces that had always been restricted were accessible. People who had always been confined were moving freely.
But freedom inside a prison like that isn't the same as outside.
There was no clear direction for everyone, no single plan that included all inmates, just pockets of control, different groups, different intentions.
Some wanted to escape, some wanted leverage, some just wanted to survive whatever was happening around them.
And in the middle of all of that, there were moments where everything slowed down, where movement stopped, where people just stood still, waiting.
Those moments were often described as the most unsettling. Because when everything goes quiet in a place that is unstable, you know something is about to happen.
Outside the prison walls, the situation was very different. Controlled, organized, waiting.
The National Guard had surrounded the facility, weapons ready, positions set, watching every movement from the outside.
And inside, the reality of what had happened was starting to settle in.
Plans weren't holding, communications were breaking down, control wasn't as strong as it had been hours earlier.
And when pressure builds inside a closed space like that, it doesn't just stay external, it turns inward.
Decisions get rushed, trust breaks down, and leadership starts to fracture.
In those final moments, the structure inside the riot collapsed.
Jerry Miles turned to Lee Smart, shot him.
And then, moments later, shot himself.
Just like that, it ended. Not with resolution, not with negotiation, but with silence.
And when everything stopped, what was left behind didn't just disappear.
In the days after the riot, staff returned to the prison not to resume normal operations, but to assess what was left.
One former guard described walking the corridors again, slowly, carefully, not because he had to, but because everything felt different.
He said the building wasn't louder. It wasn't damaged in a way that changed how it looked, but it felt altered.
He described walking past Roth's office, slowing down without meaning to.
Not out of fear, because something about that space felt heavier than the rest.
Like the moment that happened there hadn't fully passed.
He didn't see anything, didn't hear anything unusual, but he remembered that feeling.
And he said that feeling stayed with him even after he left the building.
Today, the old Montana State Prison is no longer operational. It's a museum, a historical site, a place people visit to understand what it once was.
During the day, it feels manageable, open, observable.
Tours move through the halls, guides explain the history, people take pictures and ask questions.
But even in that environment, certain experiences repeat.
Visitors describe hearing footsteps behind them, distinct, measured, matching their pace.
And when they turn around, there's no one there.
Others describe seeing movement in their peripheral vision. A figure at the end of the hallway, a shadow crossing a doorway.
But when they look directly, nothing.
Some report hearing voices, not clear enough to understand, not loud enough to locate, just present.
And those experiences don't happen to everyone, but they happen enough that the patterns stand out. What's most consistent isn't what people see or what they hear, it's what they feel.
Visitors don't always describe fear, they describe awareness.
Like stepping into a space that already had a presence, not something aggressive, not something immediate, just there.
A sense that the environment isn't empty, even when it appears to be.
And that feeling isn't always tied to one location. It moves, it shifts, it shows up in different areas for different people.
And that's what makes it difficult to explain, because it isn't consistent in form, but it's consistent in experience. The old Montana State Prison isn't active anymore. The doors stay open, the cells are empty, the routines that once controlled every movement are gone.
But what happened there didn't disappear.
Because places like this don't just hold people. They hold moments, decisions, conflict, and silence.
And when enough of that builds over time, it changes the space. Not in a way you can measure, not in a way you can prove, but in a way you notice.
When you walk through, when you pause, when you listen.
And maybe that's why people keep describing the same thing. Not the same sounds or the same sights, but the same feeling.
That something remains, not moving, not reacting, just present.
And once you notice it, it's hard to ignore. There's a reason places like this don't feel empty. It's not just age. It's not just history. It's what happened here over and over again.
The old Montana State Prison wasn't just a place where people served time. It was a place where people suffered, violently, repeatedly.
Executions happened here. Hangings. Public, structured, final.
Men walked into that space knowing they weren't walking back out. And moments like that don't just disappear.
On top of that, violent deaths, riots, assaults, decades of them layered into the same walls.
And when you stack that kind of energy in one place for over 100 years, it changes how that place feels. Stop. There's a pattern people talk about, with places like this. Prisons, hospitals, battlefields.
Places where people experience the most intense moments of their lives over and over again.
Fear, isolation, anger, hopelessness.
Inside this prison, those weren't rare experiences. They were daily life.
Cells with no heat, no ventilation, extreme temperatures below freezing in the winter, over 100 degrees in the summer.
People didn't just serve time here, they endured it.
And when that kind of emotional intensity repeats in the same space for decades, it leaves something behind.
The 1959 riot wasn't the first sign something was wrong. It was just the one that couldn't be ignored anymore.
There were multiple uprisings before it, including what became known as the Pia riot in 1957.
It started small, inmates refusing to work in extreme heat.
And within hours, it spread. Inmates overtook guards, destroyed property, forced a standoff with the National Guard.
That wasn't just an isolated event. It was a warning.
That the system inside the prison wasn't holding anymore. The 1959 riot didn't happen in isolation. It happened after years of buildup, overcrowding, mismanagement, outdated conditions.
And when it finally broke, it didn't just expose the system, it exposed how fragile it had always been.
Guards were locked in cells. The warden was taken hostage. The prison was held for 36 hours.
And when it ended, nothing about the prison could be ignored anymore.
Even after the riot, the prison stayed open for 20 more years.
But the problems never went away. Overcrowding, underfunding, outdated infrastructure.
There were attempts to fix it, reforms, changes, but nothing addressed the core issue.
The building itself was never designed to handle what it became.
And eventually, the state made a decision not to fix it, but to replace it.
A new prison was built outside of town, and in 1979, the old Montana State Prison closed for good.
Even after it closed, stories didn't stop.
If anything, they increased.
Visitors, paranormal investigations, even people who didn't believe in any of it reported the same thing.
Footsteps, voices, movement, being touched.
Some even claim specific inmates are still there, like Paul Turkey Pete Eitner, who spent nearly 50 years inside those walls.
And whether those stories are real or not, the consistency of the experiences is what stands out. Some places get rebuilt, renovated, replaced.
This one wasn't. It was left behind exactly as it was.
And that matters because nothing erased what happened there. Nothing softened it. Nothing covered it up.
It just stopped.
And when a place like that stops, it doesn't.
We will see you next time.